Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, well, we've got a heavy load, but it's crucial stuff. We're synthesizing a whole stack of sources covering active conflicts, some really high-stakes diplomacy, and honestly, some surprising shifts in global opinion. We're going deep, trying to pull out the key context, those aha moments you need, and doing it efficiently.
Yeah, and what really jumps out from the material today is just how tangled everything is. You see military action, like huge missile strikes, and almost instantly it ripples into diplomacy, market reactions. And beneath it all, you still have these core geopolitical fights, especially over resources. That seems to drive almost everything.
Okay, let's unpack that, maybe starting with the escalation on the Eastern Front. Sources are detailing a really brutal Russian assault, a massive overnight operation targeting infrastructure, and not just one spot, right? They hit energy facilities across a huge part of Ukraine, Odessa, near Kyiv, central regions, pretty much all over.
The scale is definitely significant, and the human cost was immediate. Reports mentioned at least 6 people killed, 44 injured initially across those regions. And then adding to that, later in the day, there was another strike on Kyiv itself. Explosions around, 1:10 a.m. led to 2 more deaths, 29 injured there.
And the practical damage, the infrastructure damage, was immediate, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
DTEK, that's the big private energy company in Ukraine, they confirmed severe damage, particularly down in the Odessa region, which meant, emergency blackouts had to be rolled out in Kyiv and Dnipropetrovsk.
Right. And Zelensky's reaction was quite strong, wasn't it? Urging more sanctions, saying Russian talk about diplomacy is, well, meaningless until they feel critical problems.
Exactly. He basically said words don't matter until actions have consequences back home for Russia. That statement really kind of sets the scene for the diplomatic issues we'll get into. But, while Ukraine was dealing with this, Russia put out its own operational claims.
The counter-narrative, what did they claim?
Well, they reported making advancements. Claimed they liberated 2 settlements, Ivanivka and Pavlivka.
Okay. And did they address the big overnight attack in their claims?
They did. They said they used precision weapons and specifically mentioned Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. Those are really fast, advanced ones. They insisted the targets were all energy sites serving Ukraine's defense industry. And of course, they claimed all objectives were met. Total success.
Interesting they mentioned the Kinzhals. What about specific damage claims? Did they list anything destroyed?
Yes, and this part is quite telling. They listed things like 8 armored vehicles, 4 tanks, 5 artillery pieces. But they made a point of highlighting the destruction of a U.S.-made Paladin self-propelled artillery system.
Huh. Why single that one out, you think?
Well, it's almost certainly strategic messaging, right? It's not just for the domestic audience. Calling out a U.S. system specifically is a signal to Washington, to NATO. It's basically saying, your expensive aid, we can find it and we can destroy it. It's aimed right at the Western support pipeline.
So the claim itself becomes part of the warfare. Strategic communication.
Precisely.
But Ukraine wasn't just absorbing these hits. They were striking back deep inside Russia, according to reports. 2 drone strikes mentioned.
That's right. 2 significant ones reported. First, an oil refinery in Mygaskala, that's in the Dagestan Republic. Sources there claimed a drone hit the main processing unit, caused a pretty large fire.
Okay, an energy target for an energy target. And the second one?
The second hit a place called the Saransk Mechanical Factory over in Mordovia. Now, this facility is part of Rostec, the big state defense conglomerate, and it's known for producing explosives.
An explosives factory? That sounds like a high-value military target. Did Russia say anything about that one?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed they intercepted 44 drones overall, including 8 over Dagestan, where the refinery is.
Yeah.
But they made no mention of intercepting anything over Mordovia, where the factory is.
Silence on that one. What do you read into that silence? Does it mean the strike likely got through?
It often suggests that, yes, when they're quick to announce interceptions elsewhere but stay quiet about a hit on a sensitive military-industrial site, it usually implies they'd rather not confirm a successful strike occurred. It's about controlling the information flow, especially regarding their own vulnerabilities.
Makes sense. Information control is key. Now, shifting from these big strikes to something, well, much smaller scale, but really bizarre. There was this detail from a Russian military expert, Marachko, about a Ukrainian recon group.
Yes, near Nadia in Luhansk. He claimed they neutralized this Ukrainian sabotage group, but the detail that really jumps out is what they allegedly found on the bodies.
Oh, was it?
According to Marachko's report to TASS, the deceased saboteurs were carrying, well, a very strange mix. Civilian clothes and Russian army uniforms and false documents.
Wait, hold on. Civilian clothes, Russian uniforms, and fake papers. all in the same people.
Exactly.
That sounds less like a standard recon mission and more like something out of a spy thriller. Deep cover, multiple potential identities.
It definitely points towards, complex infiltration tactics, or at least that's the narrative being put forward. It highlights how messy and layered this conflict is, way beyond just front lines and drones. It suggests a constant low-level war of deception happening alongside the bigger battles.
Wow. Okay, so the fighting is clearly complex and intense. Let's maybe step back from the battlefield itself for a moment and look at the diplomatic picture, because that seems to have hit a major snag right around the same time.
A very significant snag, yeah. The White House officially announced that the anticipated Trump-Putin summit was being postponed.
Postponed. Why? Did they give a reason?
The official line cited concerns it could be a wasted meeting, but sources indicated the real sticking point was Russia digging in its heels.
How so?
Apparently, Russia brought back its maximum demands for any peace deal, specifically insisting that Ukraine must cede control of the entire southeast Donbas region, not just the current lines of contact, but all of it.
So basically rolling back any idea of just freezing the conflict where it is now.
Precisely. It's a fundamental rejection of that kind of interim step. By restating those maximum goals, Russia essentially signaled they weren't ready for serious compromise right now, which effectively killed the immediate summit plans.
Okay, sum it off. Maximum demands back on the table. And then what happened almost immediately after that announcement? Something pretty dramatic.
Yeah, the timing was, well, hard to ignore. Just one day after the postponement news, Russia conducted a major training exercise involving its nuclear forces.
Nuclear forces, not just any military drill then.
No, this was high profile. It included practical launches of intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, the kind capable of reaching the United States.
Wow. So talks break down, maximum demands are stated, and the very next day they're test-firing ICBMs. Is this just posturing, or is it a direct warning?
I think you have to see it as a calculated signal, a demonstration of force, definitely. When diplomacy hits a wall like this, and one side feels its core demands aren't being met, these kinds of public displays of strategic capability are meant to raise the stakes. It's saying, look, if negotiation fails, these are the capabilities we have. It connects the diplomatic impasse directly to nuclear risk, a clear warning sign to the West.
And how did the markets react to this diplomatic failure and saber rattling?
Predictably, perhaps depressingly. The sources noted that European defense company stocks actually rose quite sharply on the news of the summit being postponed.
So the market sees delayed peace talks and bets on continued war.
Essentially, yes. The logic is pretty stark. If peace is further away, conflict likely continues or even escalates. And that means a continued, perhaps increased, demand for weapons and military equipment.
It's a brutal calculation, isn't it? Instability literally paying dividends for some sectors.
It highlights the economic dimensions tangled up in all this.
Okay, let's pivot from that market reaction to broader global opinions, because there was some really striking polling data out of the U.S. recently.
Yes, the Reuters Ipsos poll, specifically on U.S. views regarding recognizing a Palestinian state. The findings were quite surprising.
What did it show?
It showed a clear majority, 59% of respondents, actually support the U.S. recognizing a Palestinian state. Only 33% oppose.
Okay, 59% overall. But I imagine that breaks down along party lines pretty sharply.
It does, but maybe not quite as sharply as you'd expect on this issue.
Yeah.
Yes, support among Democrats was very high, around 80%. But the really surprising part was that even among Republicans, 41% supported U.S. recognition. Now, 53% of Republicans opposed, so it's still underwater there. But 41% support is, well, significant.
Yeah, 41% Republican support for recognizing Palestine is definitely noteworthy. Did the poll touch on the current conflict in Gaza?
It did. 60% of the U.S. respondents felt that Israel's military response in Gaza had been excessive.
And there's another twist, right, regarding former President Trump.
Yes, this was really interesting. The poll found that 51% of respondents agreed that Trump deserves credit if the current peace efforts, remember, he helped mediate the current ceasefire, actually succeed.
Over half think he deserves credit. Does that include Democrats?
It does. Remarkably, about 1 in 4 Democrats surveyed said yes, Trump should get credit if the peace holds. It kind of suggests that maybe some segment of the public is willing to credit tangible results, like a ceasefire, regardless of who brokered it, which cuts against the usual partisan grain.
Fascinating dynamics there. Okay, let's shift continents now and talk about resource politics, specifically looking at Africa. Nigeria's foreign minister, Yusuf Tuggar, had some really strong words recently.
He really did. Speaking in Abu Dhabi, he used this incredibly vivid analogy. He accused wealthy nations of treating trade and engagement with Africa like a Minecraft game.
A Minecraft game. Okay, explain that one for those who haven't played.
Right. Well, Minecraft, involves exploring a world and basically digging up resources, wood, stone, ores to build things for yourself. So Tugger's point was that rich countries often engage with Africa purely in that extraction mode, just focus on getting the oil, the gas, the critical minerals, the rare earths out.
Just mining, not building with Africa, just taking from it.
Exactly. He called it resource extraction rather than shared development. His demand was for engagement based on mutual respect, on shared interests.
And he connected this to bigger global issues, didn't he?
Yes, he explicitly linked it. He argued that Africa needs genuine development, investment in its own infrastructure and economies to tackle challenges like irregular migration. The implication being, if you only extract resources and don't help build stability, these problems will just keep flowing towards the developed world.
A powerful argument. Did he also address Nigeria's own internal challenges?
He did. He acknowledged the scale of issues like the energy crisis, mentioning the statistic that something like 1 in 10 Nigerians still lack access to electricity, which is a huge number. And importantly, he also pushed back hard against some external narratives about Nigeria's internal conflicts.
Like what?
He specifically rejected recent claims, often amplified internationally, of a Christian genocide happening in Nigeria. He called these gross distortions of a much more complex reality. He argued that while conflicts often have ethnic or religious dimensions, they are fundamentally rooted in disputes over land and resources, things like farmer-herder clashes. He was really urging a more nuanced understanding, rejecting simplistic, often politically charged labels applied from outside.
A call for nuance in a world that often prefers easy narratives.
Yeah.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what a sweep. We've seen this relentless cycle of military attack and counterattack in Eastern Europe. We saw high-level diplomacy crash almost immediately, leading straight into nuclear signaling. And at the same time, whether it's U.S. public opinion on the Middle East or African leaders demanding fair partnership, there's this growing global call for something more equitable, something beyond just extraction or applying simplistic labels.
It really paints a picture of intense friction on multiple levels, which leads us nicely, I think, to the final thought we wanted to leave you with today. Consider this. When maximum political demands, the kind that insist on total victory or capitulation, consistently block diplomatic progress like we saw with that postponed summit, and a major power follows that blockage by very publicly flexing its ultimate military muscle, its ICBMs. What does that sequence really signal about the future? Does it suggest negotiation is becoming less viable? And is the value of pure military deterrence, the ability to impose costs, actually rising in today's global landscape? Something to think about.